Okay. I tested
Right,
negative.
it's alive now.
Well,
Oh, it's Paul's blood.
Again,
not as in St Paul's, but. Thank you very much indeed for coming to this meeting of Finance and General Purpose Committee. I'm drawing on a little bit of paper here. So, absences. We've got 2 apologies for absences.
Yes, got apologies from Councillor Davis and Councillor Rycold.
Brilliant. We're happy to accept those apologies, I assume. Lovely. Declarations of interest.
I have a new one. I joined the board of Creative Rambles Trustees, so I can't participate in some of those discussions.
Just all over all of these things. That's very good news for Creative Ramble. Anyone else? No? Brilliant. Thank you very much indeed. No representations from interested parties. No consideration of requests from interested parties. Minutes of the previous meeting, we have had a copy of them. I don't think there's anything controversial. Receiving accounts, the 106 funding to Flatfield and budget discussions. Any issues anywhere? I could borrow that pen. Is everyone happy that I sign them? Could I have a proposal? Could I have a seconder? Should people vote? Thank you very much. Thank you very much indeed. So straight into almost the last item, financial matters. To receive the monthly accounts for November 2021. Are there any issues or anything exciting that people want to raise in any of those? No, brilliant. Well, thank you as normal for everyone that's generated them. And I will do my online stuff tomorrow. I've got a date in my diary, so I won't forget. I've lost it. There we go. So those received a grant application from Creative Ramble. Can Jerry sit in the room muttering to us? Does he have to leave?
He can sit in the room, yeah.
Well,
Just
ask
not
your questions.
vote. It's not pecuniary.
That's fine. So this is a grant application for making a cardboard owl, as I recall.
Yeah.
To me, it seemed like an excellent initiative. But what do we think? What's the grant budget on that all?
Currently, we've spent 8,080,
8,080 of
about 15,000 kilos.
lovely. This.
I just wondered why it had to be free to all. A 2-day workshop, it seems generous to make it entirely free, based entirely on a budget around the town council, really.
Is there an argument, I suppose, that it will be hard to start working out how much people could pay or should pay or don't pay, and people might be put off
Yeah.
if it's not free? I suppose my thinking was as
But
well.
people will always be attracted to things that are free, you know.
That's good, but in terms of our green initiatives this year, cardboard seems a good thing. It might make a nice series of photos. And also you think, if you're a young family, or as you get back from the town council, this might be a nice way into the festival, the Praise Carnival process.
So you think that we'll get billing at that level, that it was entirely funded by Amble Town Council, or could we make that?
I'm sure we can make it a condition. Is it entirely funded, or was
Well,
there
it
a
was
slight
£18,000,
£200 bonus?
Yeah.
So essentially, yes.
Broadly funded.
Broadly funded.
They do tend to acknowledge us in any, if they've received grant funding from us.
I think we can acknowledge the fact that we largely funded it as well. David?
Yeah, can't help but noticing that they seem to have a surplus, which they say is equivalent to 3 months' worth. I understand why the council has to carry 3 months' worth of resource. I'm slightly less certain what they do. And apart from being slightly sympathetic to what Liz has just said in terms of having free access, I also do wonder whether we should be funding 98% of the cost of it. Certainly, absolutely no objection to putting up funding. If I was picking a figure, I'd probably actually say, well, we should put up half and let you raise the other half or fund that from your own reserves, rather than pay £1,800 towards it, which would make it one of the larger grants that we've given to almost anything, I would think.
Can't ask Jerry his opinion.
I also slightly object to any grant application that comes in without the financial support of this, and then we will not be able to include it in our programme for 2022, which is like, you know, a bit ungenerous to say if you don't fund it. I mean, it wasn't our idea they put it on, but I like to make the argument and not actually
No, it's
necessarily
good to have-
vote against it, but
Could have a
it just
devil's
seems
advocate.
to me, anyone can put anything on for free, and I'm not sure why the people of Oundle in their precept should have to pay for it entirely.
Well, if I'm going to play devil's advocate, whichever way it works, if one is living in Oundle with a family of a 7, a 9, and 11-year-old, and the festival, for want of a better word, takes over, the Oundle show weekend takes over Oundle. So what else am I getting for my children to do, maybe? And the fact that we're supporting a very specific type of workshop in QDH maybe, which is our building, it's a good flagship for us. We'd have to put it on. That would be my reverse thing. Would you be against it, or would you be happy?
Well, I mean, how can you be against a 2-day workshop for children building outline animals? Of course not. It's like a Grinch at Christmas, you know.
Would you rather go at 1,800 or at David's compromise
I think
1,000?
1,000 feels to me like we've made a significant contribution towards the cost, whether they'd like to find funding elsewhere or charge people a nominal fee to be there. Seems not unreasonable. And come to us for future events. We'll look at another one.
And we might be even more friendly with them by then, with Jerry's persuasive work behind the scenes, etc. Is there any reason why we shouldn't drop it to 1,000 maybe?
No, it's entirely up to you. What you know, whether you approve it, don't approve it, only offer slightly less. I mean, the only thing is if they come back and say they can't get any funding and
Yeah, exactly.
they can't go ahead with it, then
Could we then make an extraordinary extra grant?
well then
Or is that
you're going back on a decision that you've just sat and made. I mean, personally, we're in December. We've only got 3 months. We've still got quite a bit left in that budget.
Yes, true.
I think there's
For my money, I'd be happy to go all in on this one, as a sort of see how it goes type thing. David, are you willing to bend or not?
Yes, I do feel as if.
Well, I mean,
Jason,
this is just way the one way or the
whatever
other.
it was.
But I'm probably persuaded too.
1,800, but we have to have major building as an event sponsored by Oundle Town Council.
So conditional. In lights, above the building, at night,
Flashing.
flashing.
Where does it take place?
They're hoping the QVH, but that's probably just a.
They're allowed to come back and ask us to provide them that for free.
Free.
We can say you've got it right. I suppose it
I'm
depends how the
talking
conversation's
about
going.
as the QBH trustees, then chances of fall back anyway. Get at least some of this money back again.
It's off, isn't it? So-
Give us this. So Liz, you might be persuaded if we get maximum advertising.
I will. I just, as we have a member of Creative Oundle here, he's heard my concerns. He can pass them on if he feels it's appropriate.
Like-
that-
like.
Yeah. Was I rude?
No. Please.
Then,
Go on then. So I'm going to propose,
I'll go with them.
it's already into it's Christmas. So I'm going to propose that we approve the grant of £1,800. Does anyone want to second it? Jerry can't.
oh, right, okay.
Yeah, so, and then we're all happy to vote on that.
I can't believe we're poor on 3, God.
Yeah, just like it. Thank you very much indeed. Top billing, Jerry. A big cardboard arrow floating down.
Ian Clark's house.
Yes.
We might get some, there might be some good pictures that we can use.
Yeah, I think there'll be
Yeah.
some great pictures, and it could be that we end up leaving a bit to the hotspot building, which building is this toilet paper? Brilliant. Excellent. To consider a request to spend £750 on deposit to hire a large screen for the Platinum Jubilee and approve any expenditure out of general reserves until the new budget starts. So this is partly because we've got a slot in the budget for the Jubilee funding for next year. This deposit needs to be paid.
And I think there'll be other things that need to be paid for the 1st of April. So it's working out how we, making sure that we've got a provision, take that money
And
and
then
then.
next year's budget, pay it back in advance.
Mm.
Jerry?
I have a couple of questions about this. Firstly was, where are we with I've seen the document with the overall budget, and I can see that there was an expectation or hope that most of that cost would be covered by lottery funding. But I'm assuming full council hasn't signed off on that yet.
This is correct.
So is it not a bit prim to spend £200 deposit on a budget that hasn't been approved? And the second thing was that last I heard, Paul Eagley hadn't had it confirmed that the Queen's Jubilee concert, which is what this is in order to screen, was going to be made available for free by the BBC or whoever. So again, if that doesn't happen, then we might not land on the screen.
Yeah. I mean, I think, it's free if you want, well, it's not free, but you can watch it in your own home, but
Yeah.
to be screening it at an event is a different matter. I mean, that was my first concern, with,
I think Paul's view is that the BBC are deciding, and probably will leave it a little bit later, depending on whether they need the Jubilee concert or not.
Yeah.
And my question was, what happens if there is no Jubilee?
Yeah.
And there's an email that I sent on to you, that Paul sent to me saying that the deposit is refundable in those circumstances.
Okay.
So that's one thing covered. So maybe we should make it conditional on that. But I think they need it now before they give it to someone else.
well, I think there's a worry that the screen may not be available. I don't know how easy it's going to be to get a screen from anywhere else. But
There is a screen in Amble that I've made inquiries about at school, but it's probably not guaranteed to work, and it's probably not as good as this.
Mhm.
So it's very much a plan D, E.
So I suppose, if what I'm hearing is correct, is that we don't have the option of delaying it a bit, so we can at least make sure that full council's happy to sign off on the full budget.
Mhm.
And we don't want to risk losing it, but, so if that's the case, we do have to make a decision now. We need to do it in mind that there's a risk you might never see it again, because if for whatever reason,
We could still use it for something else.
we could
Broadcast the cardboard village.
no one here.
The only thing I have thought is, I don't know, can it be used in all weathers? Because if it pours with rain on the day,
That's a big issue. For the generator.
I don't know, do we lose all that money? Do we still have to
I guess-
pay for
I
it?
guess-
Do we lose the deposit?
We're checking, but I don't want to assume it will easily use it.
There might be some sort of event insurance that they
Yeah.
can sell with it, I don't know.
Can I just quickly come back on the budget point?
Mhm.
And it's not directly linked to this, but it is. We've got to sort of put a figure into that spreadsheet for what the Jubilee budget is going to be, which we've got 10,000 in at the moment. And that budget number came in at 13.5. And it struck me, at least, that maybe it was a bit ambitious as a budget. It looked quite high. So I think we don't have to make a decision on all of it necessarily, but I think 10,000 seems a lot of money to be putting into the Jubilee for my money already, particularly at the end of half term when Lots of people might be going away on a 4-day weekend, etc. So maybe we need to look at how big the plans are to limit the budget in some way, shape or form. And if we're focusing on flat and field next year, maybe that's when we should focus our efforts. But that makes the screen maybe more important. David, sorry.
Yeah, well, just going back to this whole idea of could there be some alternative use for it if it wasn't for the one that we kind of originally thought? And could we, for example, put something on at another location and screen it to that field or whatever? But I just don't know quite how this actually works from that point of view.
The technology, no. There's a technician with it, that was exciting. So we need to worry about that. Are we able to approve it provisionally? That makes sense. And if Paul can get answers on the wet weather and what happens if the BBC don't stream it before we actually end up paying it. Because otherwise we're going to be looking to either do it next week as part of full council or January the something, which some things may have moved on.
Would another week make a difference? In the sense that if we could get answers to some of the things that are kicking around tonight, could we not put it on the agenda for Tuesday? Unless we run the risk of losing the whole thing in even 7 days.
I think Paul's view was that the sooner the better, but that's based on other people must be watching it. There's no detail on the invoice about what happens if anything doesn't go ahead, is there? Could we, to avoid a massive more discussion next week, could we recommend that it's approved next week on condition that we get answers to the 2 questions?
Yeah, I think as well though, it's also about if we are going to be having to purchase anything else. I'm sure we will, between January and the 1st of March, we might have to put deposits and secure things. That's if we go the whole hog.
Well, even if we go half hog.
Yeah, we're still going to need to use some money.
I think for my money, the principle of that is reasonable, sort of borrowing from next year
Yeah.
deposits.
You
Provided-
still have some money in this year's budget then?
Yeah, sorry?
You still have some money in this year's
Yeah,
budget?
provided also we've got those caveats covered. Because they've got to spend lots of money on deposits, we can't get it back. Should we
Yeah.
not need it or it doesn't go ahead? The wet weather question is a good one. You know, can you get events? Have we got events insurance? Is there no shape?
Well, I've contacted our insurance, and what I did send was the sort of plan. They've come back with quite a few questions, but there's a few things on that plan that I think we'd agree that we wouldn't do. And so the event will be insured. I'd have to ask whether something like that would be covered, like in the event of wet weather.
I suspect you struggle because you're not charging people entry, therefore you're not lost revenue. So, you know, there's no loss. If it rains, then no one turns up, then we've spent that money on a big screen that no one looked at, but we weren't going to charge them to do it anyway.
No.
It's got a generator from a technician who can watch it
Yeah.
on his own. But then at some point, we're going to have to put our money.
But there's also, the BBC could turn around and say, no, you can't do it.
I suspect if we say we like it, but it's conditional on the BBC saying yes, the BBC aren't going to say yes in the next few weeks.
Yeah.
I think they're just going to hold their horses until.
So I think we've sort of probably got to do it because, you know, if we don't use it, I think we can get the money back. So like,
Yeah, I suspect this is more of an issue, judging by the email Paul sent me from them. It seems that it's almost a holding deposit,
yeah,
and whether we then put that to another event at some other point, that might be our worst case scenario, rather than using it directly. So I'm happy to go ahead, I suppose. Liz, are you for or against at this stage?
I feel it's a sort of inevitability. But I am a little disappointed that we haven't agreed the overall budget ahead of being asked to start spending money against anything. But for £750 on the amount that we're going to be asked to approve, it's not a huge amount, and if that's been spent, then that's been spent and they haven't got it again.
And I think it is the main focus of that part of the evening. As I understand it, I don't even know what time the concert's going to start. Is it 7:30?
No, I don't know.
So it'll probably be daylight, so I'm not sure how good the screen is.
I know they're talking about Fletton Field sort of starting at about 3:30, something like that. There's a bit of overlap between that and what's going to happen down in the town.
Was the use of Fletton Field approved then?
No.
No.
I know, so it's all on a bit, it's all on a,
It hasn't
It's
been
just
requested yet, has it? Or has
Yeah,
it?
that's good.
It has.
Very well. As it's been requested, and then we've got a lot of forms back to fill in, when those forms will be completed in Drake and.
yeah, I think at the meeting that we had on the 6th, because it talks about the whole event, but I said to Paul Evely, I said, you're better off, because you just need to know whether we can use Fletton Field, just get that form in for Fletton Field and what's happening on there. The town council are supporting it, so I've said it will come under our insurance. It was those sort of things, so I think he was then going to fill it in and get it in.
If we end up not getting permission, I guess there's no reason why we couldn't relocate that to somewhere else. So, yeah, or,
Well, it could be the recreation.
Well,
area.
is the road closure still going to be ongoing into the what we wanted? It was probably not to see the road closure went in the evening, not I guess. So, yeah, on the record, that'd be, I guess,
Well, that's what the last one was, I think. Is that recall?
Sorry?
That's what the last Jubilee was it?
Or the Jubilee Field.
Yes, it's called the Jubilee Field.
Is it?
So I guess it's only the only concern really is whether or not the BBC let you screen this, because as long as they do, then it's not a problem, because you can do it somewhere else even if that field's not available.
So there's wet weather, but that's probably the same with everything. There's daylight, but presumably it's
I assume that people who provide a screen are happy that it's good enough.
because lots of
daylight.
screens do work.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then there's just the risk of there being no need, but that's covered. So it's just the risk of what if the BBC saying, yeah, but Cliff and the Big Red Dog could go on or something, DVD collections. So Liz, maybe Jerry, your
The dilemma is, as I say, is how time critical is it really? If it really does need to be decided tonight, then I suppose it's £750 at risk, and I think that's not unreasonable to put it at risk, given all the things we just discussed. If we could defer it until we've got a little bit more certainty, certainly may be preferable, I would have thought.
David.
Yeah, I mean, with Jerry on it in the sense that, in principle, I'm fine with it. I would like answers to questions. We could have them by next week, and it doesn't mess everything up. That would make a lot more sense in case some of the answers we get back make us have second thoughts. Maybe we can approve it in principle, but make an inquiry as to whether, in fact, they could hold it for us for 7 days pending full council decisions, something like that. And if they can't, then we give the clerk authority to commit outright as it was.
I've got a bit of an email here that Paul sent the other day, which has actually got the answers to a question on. As advised, he said he's extending the window that we can pay the deposit until the 15th of December to meet with the council, so that's tomorrow. So
Right.
it's effectively
Already extended it.
extended it for us already, so that sort of puts the pressure on us a little bit. As advised, if the BBC don't allow public broadcasts, we will refund the 30% deposit, as agreed by our finance manager, Sarah.
Okay.
So that seems to solve that big one. So basically, it's a Holden deposit.
I think on that basis, I thought I'd say yes.
We've mitigated the risks.
Yeah.
Not in that way, we can't be too bad at this stage. So I'm happy to propose it along with that condition in the email, which is on recording here.
Sorry, along with the,
Well, just the fact that if the
Subject.
BBC, yeah, subject.
if that, yeah, subject.
The BBC can't broadcast it for whatever reason, I suppose. We get 12 back. Any other technical questions we can't solve tonight, but we're going to have to deal with it at some point. So I'm happy to propose that we pay the 750 subject to that. Is anyone willing to second it? Thank you very much, David. We're all happy to vote on that. Thank you very much indeed.
When we do want paying by in.
Apparently by the 15th, I'm not sure what it says on the invoice.
Well,
I presume it must have been the original date.
yeah, we're going to struggle to do that.
I suppose if you can confirm it's being paid.
Yeah.
The next round of
Confirmed
payments
it's
is
been
the
authorised.
17th. There's a list of payments which you've sent out for the 17th, and that won't also be on it.
I will send Emma and you the email that I got sent.
It won't be on the list of payments for approval, but as it's just been approved here, then
So I'll set it
we'll
up.
set it up and then we'll have to authorise it.
But I'm sure if you speak to them and say, we've approved it, it'll take X amount of days for us to do the
Yeah.
paperwork. They know it's a sign of faith, isn't it?
I'm in on Friday if you need me, but did you say you've emailed it to Paul as well? Right, so he's got the supply now.
And it's a long email from Paul, from Kim Jones.
It's got sort of code account and run everything else.
I think that might be an invoice.
It's on the invoice, yeah.
Just check.
It's in up to the-
Kim Jones's name is on the invoice as well, so. Yeah, we're just saying that we've done it and it's Christmas, they'll be fun with it, I'm sure. Lovely, and then finally to agree the budget for 22-23, the amount of precept claimed. The recommendation is then put forward to full council next Tuesday. Well, thank you for all your number crunching to generate various options at the bottom. Are there any points, queries, questions about what's on the sheet we've had sent and is up on the screen?
When you said options, what are the options?
Down the bottom, there are in red, quite a big spreadsheet. As I understand it, Paul can correct me, those 5, 6 and 7% are effectively the percentage increases on the
Okay.
budget, and in effect, a precept as well.
In the first part, there was about 7 or 8 lines where you could make a decision to do something or not, or change. But at the moment, how you left to the last finance and general purposes, that was the figure you were planning to spend, 586.
What's
If you
the-
increase the preset by 5%, that's 521, which means you'll be taking £64,000 from reserves. If you increase it by 6%, that's the preset 526, you'll only be taking 59,000 from reserves. 7%, 10%.
I must know, sorry, I know I didn't manage to get to the last meeting, but I did look at the minutes and I saw that we said, not me, but you said that you'd been asked to look at how we could bring down the proposed increase because it was too high.
Yeah,
In the headline numbers at the top, when I looked at them earlier on, the in your orange column,
this bit here,
yeah, so
that
you're,
was the original 3% roughly on the majority budget headings. So the majority of the figures that we've had have increased by about 3%.
yeah, but in the preset number in there, which I assumed was the proposed budget, is 18% more than the preset the previous year.
Yes.
And I was a bit shocked by that, and I say I know I was at the last meeting, but it sounds like we were trying to not have an 18% increase, and I don't think I could vote for an 18% increase. No,
Which is-
sorry, I don't think, I know I can't vote for an 18% increase, so I think, we need to find another way of doing something.
Yeah, that's
That
why,
was the thing, that's the idea of
Okay.
the £64,000 reduction.
So this is, okay,
because for example, there are some biggish numbers in there, including the Jubilee,
Yeah.
the Hub, etc. And so the idea was to draw money out of reserves, which might include this year's underspend,
Yeah.
right,
and push it into next year.
right,
So the first thing to do would be, you've got sort of 7 or 8 items where you decided to spend some money.
Yep.
Obviously, if you reduce that amount of money you're planning to spend, reduces the preset, reduces the money you're going to bring in from reserves.
thank you.
That's where we got to last year.
Okay, thank you, and apologies for not being
That's fine.
able to speak. So can you tell me then, in which of those options is the precept increase less than some number, 10%.
So,
So if we're not prepared to put the precept up by more than, I mean, I'm not even terribly comfortable with 10%, let's say we were prepared to put the precept by 10%, that would mean what?
if you want to increase it by 10%,
I don't want to increase it by 10%.
no, but if
So
Really hypothetically.
yeah,
you would need to effectively find £39,000. So that figure.
okay. So
But that would assume then you wouldn't be taking any money from reserves, and you're increasing your precept by 10%.
okay, so the percentage at the top, it represents what the precept increase would be, right, okay.
So we said come up with a range of figures from 5 to 10%, and
Gotcha.
how much that would mean to take out
Right,
of reserves.
brilliant, I finally
But
got
all,
the
but all of that figure is the same, because that's assuming that the decisions you made last time,
Yeah.
you're not going to move on. So I think the first bit is the 7 or 8 items that we talked about. Do you still want to do them? And they are all highlighted in red, which are, did you want to cemetery warden for 5k? Obviously, if you say no, reduces it by 5k, you don't need to find that. And the other ones are just to go through the resurfacing. Which year did you want to do that for the car park? Same with the maintenance. The car park, when did you want to do that? At the moment, you've got £5,000 in there. 41k here for
Toilets.
the toilets, which I know there's been some discussion over.
Yeah,
Recreation ground turntable.
I mean, I do think that, I know we talked about this before, I don't think they're that bad.
The decision that was discussed at the last estates meeting, and I think this will confirm, is that we thought a whole refurbishment at 70,000 was too much, and we're looking at ways to do it. I suggested to Overstone that maybe it's worth keeping that 40 in, but not as toilet refurbishment, but as estates.
Yeah, I think you should take it out. I think, which is what I said, rather than having a budget of 40,000 for toilet refurbishments, because it's a little bit misleading.
Oh, no, I mean the number, but not in that, necessarily in that area. So
Yeah,
we can certainly take
But I
that.
think you need to leave some, because I think there will be some refurbishment that needs to happen. But then maybe the bulk of it have in another column.
Because the idea was that Flattenfield might need, should it get approved, the pathway might need doing relatively quickly. And I was also aware, and it's something we can talk about in the States next time we have a meeting, that some sort of matting in the wreck was an idea to make some long-term parking might be a good idea, because it was brilliant parking in the wreck, but if it had rained, we'd have lost some cars. But again, we haven't quite discussed those, so whether the number goes somewhere else or not. But that big figure is huge, and I don't think we're going to spend that much on toilets. So that's an area we could reduce. What else? There's.
I'd like to understand how column E comes to a projected effective, I don't understand what we're going to call it, over 100,000. But I don't understand why that isn't immediately applicable to the budget and reduce expenditure, what has to be precepted in 2022-23 by that 100,000. So it's just the mechanics of how the spreadsheet is working.
Because at the moment, these are the figures as of the end of September. They've increased slightly now. And at the moment, you're about £108,000 underspent on the year, which is all down to the large figures for repairs and maintenance, which haven't happened.
Such as the toilet.
Yeah. Such as,
Which is what we're saying, I mean, it can
Yeah.
go from reserves, because it's going to go, effectively it's going to go into reserves.
Yeah,
So
it'll
rather
go
than-
into general reserve.
So rather than building up reserves, perhaps
So
for
in
them, what we absolutely need,
Yeah.
we could then use that, pull that forward into next year.
Effectively, so in May we're not spending this year.
yeah,
Just on that basis, reserves, how much do we have in reserves?
Available to spend is theoretically 352.40, and out of that, that's how much money you've got broken down. There's 312,000 in revenue reserves, of which we always keep roughly 3 months' worth of expenditure, which is around about 173.
So we've already got quite a bit.
Yes.
So the reserves are comfortable.
And we're going to put that up again by
Yes,
that 100.
assuming that none of that
Yeah.
£100,000 gets spent, yes.
Yeah, but if that 100 gets spent this year, it means we won't be spending next year.
Exactly.
So it doesn't be there, is it?
See, with that number in mind, I was thinking of those preset rises, 5% feels like the most we should go to.
Yeah.
And that,
Well, I would certainly be a lot happy with that.
and that's much lower than 18.
Yeah.
But also it does recognise that with, potential wage increases, electricity, gas, et cetera, which are out of our control, plus hopefully spending on some projects that are good for the town, then 5% after 0% this year that seems a good balance.
So I think particularly with what's happening, I mean, it's not just us that are experiencing it, having our budget stretches it, it's everyone in the town is going to be feeling the effect of
That's why
tax
we
increases.
That's why we need to
energy
go
increases.
with reserves as much as we could.
Yeah, I would be happy to support the 5% increase.
David, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, traditionally, we've always underspent, and not insignificantly. This could be the year it all changes, but it probably won't. And I think it is to go for a relatively modest increase and just call it that we need 200 reserves because it'll be enough at the end of the day. So yeah, I think it's 5%. I might be prepared to go to 6, but I think that just that averages out to about 3% across the 2 years. Because traditionally, that's again what always happens. If we reduce it to practically nothing, there's always a bounce back the following year. Maybe it's makes slightly more sense to just even it out over a period of time. But 5% or 6% would be.
Fantastic. Do we need to look at any of those figures? Do you want to look at the toilet and reduce that? Would that get us to 4% or is that?
The first thing is those the things that are highlighted, you want to stick with them. Which
Can I
ones?
just ask about income before we,
Yeah.
because the 3% has been applied to all the rents, or I assume that that's what you've done.
I think they've been
for-
realistic.
The markets and what have you. Doesn't this council set what the actual rent is, or as part of what we're doing now, are we giving you the authority to put the rent up by 3% next year?
No, because it's your decision whether you want to put any rent up. The last time the markets went up was 2017. That's 4 years ago. The difficulty has been with all the markets, just keeping people putting the rents up in the market won't help that.
Yeah, so in fact, exactly what I was thinking. I was thinking, I'm not sure I want to put the rents up.
No, I'm
in the
not saying-
market.
No, the rents aren't going up.
The rents have also
That's a
stayed the
realistic
same.
budget for, if you look at the market rents for the past sort of 3 years, it's 14,000, 13, 10 in 2020, and obviously down to 6 last year. I'm budgeting 9,888 for this year. It's just
So
realistic
you
budgeting.
think,
I can't see it being any more than that. It's simple as really.
right, okay, yeah, okay.
Yeah, we're not budgeting for anything for some of the other markets, the Italian, French, international.
The last Italian market, they turned up, but the money didn't.
Yeah, I think at a council meeting, it was decided to not have, I think it was in an estates meeting, to not have
I didn't
the
like
Italian and French markets anymore.
I think the idea was to keep them under our control
Yeah.
rather than.
The Christmas market, you decided cost neutral and spend 8,000 on it, and hopefully get £8,000 back in again.
Yeah, remember that.
No, I was a bit surprised about French Italian because I would have, my impression has always been that those have been well attended and popular, maybe not, obviously not last year.
The last 2 or 3 weren't. They were.
I think, yeah, and there was
Yeah.
some people complained a bit about some things being sold as well.
Stuff you can buy in Peterborough.
Doesn't mean to say we can't have any in the future.
Mm.
Okay.
German market.
Yeah. Maybe next year, that'll be my side trade. So most of the rents are staying roughly the same, aren't they? That's-
Well, you've got, it says CH Office Council Chamber. The lease expires, so would that not go up next time?
Well, I think we're stuck on a certain figure per square metre.
Yeah, that's Barry's advisors, it's £300 per square metre. They're our agents that we use.
Even at the end of every lease review, at the end of every lease?
Yeah, that's that, if we've got new people coming in, that they're the ones that and they've been working on that since I've been here for the last 4 years.
Those come through estates, don't they, I suppose?
Sorry?
If there's a new lease or a release, they come through estates.
Yeah, if it's new people.
Then on burials, I wondered, as you can see, I spent my time on income this time. On burials, I wondered if there's a continuous move really to more cremations, and almost certainly you don't charge so much for cremations. I mean, you can say, well, that balances against there's more people to die, and so I don't know what the number is, but I would think that that balance between burials and cremations is changing. I don't have any evidence for that, just
I don't
an
think so.
assumption.
The
People
figures are
tend to
reasonably
like to be
standard.
buried in Oundle.
Sorry?
People tend to like to be buried in Oundle. I mean, we do have cremations, but we're running out of space, so at some point, unless we get any extra land, they won't have the option to be buried in Oundle.
Do you have a meeting to organise?
Yeah, I
on
know.
that score?
Yeah, that's just jogged my memory.
Just reminded me as well.
Hmm.
I'm surprised how popular burials are. Whenever I've been down there seem to be, yeah, I felt similar to you, but it looks like maybe not.
But the figures are reviewed again through estates.
Yeah, I haven't really spent any time looking at the income numbers before, so that's only just occurred to me.
It's reasonably consistent.
Yeah, it is. I just
What's
wondered if
happening
you're
in the
actually
world?
thinking there's a downward trend rather than we always want to offset by putting the actual cost up, you know.
And generally, the income across all of it is reasonably standard. It's just the expenditure we have variances on.
Oh, yeah, definitely, yeah.
So any other questions on income from Jerry, David? So-
It's always a little bit of a step in the dark, isn't it?
Sets the scratch. So the points of uncertainty that you've highlighted, I think I've got one in nothing, because there's nothing in cemetery wall.
That's there's nothing there at the moment until you decide.
So that's,
Sorry, we had any interest at all, because we haven't made known that we're looking for one.
we haven't really advertised it.
I still need to have a chat with somebody about it.
So the idea is that in some way, we make some provision for better cemetery management, and how it ends up working, I suppose, is something we work out next year. There's probably something we need to consider on estates in the new year, but that at least put some money behind it as an idea.
So you want to retain that?
I would, do other people for or against?
I think it's worth a go, I do, and because I'm happy to spend money in reserve, so I'm happy to have quite a generous looking budget supported by 5%, so I gave 6%, percent per precept, and spend from reserve. All we're doing is that we're earmarking 5,000 from reserves if we decide to go ahead with it. It's kind
Just
of,
on that same point as well, in the advertiser this month just gone out, we sort of trailed some of these ideas and things that we'd be talking about, including the cemetery. And actually the person who contacted me back in the summer saw that and came back saying, thank you so much, that's brilliant, blah, blah, blah. Now, that doesn't mean anything, but you know, I don't think has anyone come back and said you shouldn't do that or you shouldn't do this, or no one's painted on the outside of flat in the house, don't do this,
No.
don't do that. So, you know, in general terms, we've sort of pushed some ideas out. Churchyard, that is the walls. And again, it might be that we're putting this away year on year for some big wall
Yeah.
work that we have a report on. The toilets, that's a big number.
What about, first of all, go through in order, the car parks? You've currently got £32,000 budgeted for next year. Do you want it next year, do you want it the year after? Because that's significant in terms of one phone call to tow a car.
Yeah, I mean, I think there is some work that needs to be done in that car park.
Absolutely.
And I think, I mean, we've not had lots of complaints about it, but we've had a few.
No, I think there's definitely work.
Mm.
I think there might be a question over who's totally responsible for some of it, but
Well, we could just close it if they don't use it, so we could just close it.
that's not true. I thought that was true. I went to the house last week and it was full at 6:15 with all the beavers being picked up and all the cubs being dropped off because I couldn't find a parking space.
Not
You
much
stand
beaver.
corrected.
And then so I thought, where are all these people? No, they're not from the road. So it was really busy, and they see it as a really big part of their package, which I was unaware of. So I suppose that's going to go into next year, probably, isn't it?
yeah, I say leave it, I do, I say leave it.
Okay,
Pending us reviewing the lease again and understanding, you know, exactly where our responsibilities are.
And it's
Making a sensible decision based on the amount of lease time that's left.
brilliant. So toilets,
drill wall,
brilliant. I highlighted it with your highlights. Oh, the car park.
Do we think
Yeah.
5,000 is enough then, whether spent in 1 year or the other, it's not 10,000 in 2 years? Is that what your question is there, Paul?
the question is, at the moment, we've got £5,000 in the budget for this year, and you're currently budgeting for £5,000 for next year, and then down to normal 1,000 for the years after that.
But I don't think there's that much. I don't remember there being that much. So if we can get that, I think we asked Lisa to try to get that expenditure into this year if she could.
That was the painting, wasn't it?
And so I don't think we necessarily.
So we made that number one, but the 5 from this year might drift into next year, so. depending on-
That doesn't matter, we're concerned about the preset we're setting for next year. If you think that should be, or can be reduced, then obviously that's less money you need to take from reserves.
There's nothing else outstanding in the Drumble car park, is there? There was
No,
that drain,
just a sign.
a sign.
Does that include a sign?
I suppose it's this or another budget, but no, a sign. of some
Because I
sort.
know, I
Signs.
mean, when I was directing people there at the Christmas market, there's no sign to say whereabouts, you know, you could easily drive past it if you don't know what you're looking for.
But that comes back to having those town maps
Yeah, indeed.
in a couple of places. But signage for the design, the wreck as well. Spent a lot of time telling people how to walk to the
There's-
spire. I could have given them the town trail to walk.
There's a figure for white lines, 1,476.
Yeah.
This year.
So I would say if you were going to have a sign as well, you'd probably spend that 5,000 this year.
This year.
This year,
And just go to
Was
the
it-
maintenance budget of 1,500
for next year.
next year.
So I'm
See
gonna-
what we get to.
So is that dropped to a what, is it?
1,500
1,500.
is my suggestion.
Sounds good to me. No, desperate, yes. So many toilets recently. Tim Orford, just from
Public
research.
conveniences.
That's your claim on them, So 41,000, we think that's for the full, all singing, all dancing, full scale refurb, which we don't think we need, because our toilets are actually better than many. We're going to do lots of lovely steam cleaning,
Yeah.
cleaning, deep cleaning,
Yeah.
and make it all work beautifully, and put a lovely map on the outside, which will probably take most of this year's 27,000.
Definitely,
Maybe give it a look of paint.
yes.
So very nicely painted toilet this week. But then the 41,000 is probably unnecessary next year, is that our thinking? So
We
do
always
we?
want a maintenance budget in there, I'm sure.
Absolutely. And it might be that some of the things go wrong, particularly if we don't get the
Yeah, because when you're
right.
thinking of those sinks as well, I mean, I think if one of those goes wrong,
Yeah, I think also the general view was that we should have a regular
Yeah.
maintenance,
Yeah.
including
All
the
buildings
drains being
should
rolled
have their own
out,
little,
etc.
little pot.
So we still keep it higher, but we value the public toilets and we think they're a good thing and we should keep them. They should be decent, if not shiny. So what do we make that number moving forward? What's it been traditionally? 1,000?
7.5.
7.5 seems reasonable.
It's quite, get quite a lot done. So
Yeah. And also,
Plumbing is expensive though.
Yeah.
Just, I just had too many buttons for it.
Oh, yeah, I know. I mean, you only have to have a plumber out, don't you? And-
but I think the other thing is we thought we should have the drains done every few
Yeah,
months. We should
we
have
did,
it stick
we
and
did.
cleaned every few
Yes,
months,
yeah.
so it's kept on top of.
Yeah.
Yep, so 7.5.
So that is a number I've blocked out, yeah.
Plucked out of the water.
Not because I don't know any plumbers.
But also, it will keep us on estates honest about making sure we're doing that
Yeah.
stuff.
And spend that
Rather than
27,000 this year.
Yep.
We possibly can.
What's the next area?
Recreation, ground youth activities.
Recreation and youth activities.
You currently have 10,000 in your budget, and you're proposing another 3 for next year.
This is all slightly affected by where we get with the accessible play equipment, which we haven't had any quotes on that, I don't think. What we can probably solve from this year, in theory. And any skate park work, but that's probably coming from the 106.
yeah, and probably elsewhere, I'd say.
I can also report, I know this is not part of our meeting tonight, but I can report incredibly positive comments about the basketball court.
Oh,
I had 2 spies in the basketball court tonight, and they said that regular users spoke to them, and they said they like it. So there we are, praise indeed. So I think 3,000 was the number we came to last time because we've sort of run out of stuff to spend it on down at the rack at the moment, but it's still something we could replace a goal with or do some work with. I mean, is this where we should bring some of the toilet safe money into possibly looking at, I know I get excited about plastic matting, but if we are going to use the rec as a car park on a regular basis, some sort of runoff from the basketball court would seem.
Would it have, I mean, I know nobody really plays football on there, would it have an impact on a football pitch?
I think if you just ran some off
Along the side,
along the side, just as a road, because even the most delicate cars were willing to park on the mud. It was just the fact that 100 cars and 200 cars were going to be running back onto the basketball point at the same point. And I was thinking, where's the nearest tractor? Because I wouldn't have been there at 6 o'clock. But there was the chance that there had been some wheels spinning once one of them goes. So the idea was just to have a little bit of track. So maybe we need to move some of that money into the rec overall.
can you, I saw the link you sent, can you mow it as normal?
Yeah, you just stick it down, you let the grass grow through it, and then you just run
There's
over
no-
the top. It's brilliant. And I've seen it in some car parks in Snowdonia. It's kind of a trick on the country, giving ideas. But it would just mean that we could use the rec, and the festival could use the rec for parking on
Yeah.
a more weather safe.
So do we know roughly how much it would cost?
Up to 150.
I just feel this hasn't been even brought to estates, so
No,
it's
it
like,
hasn't, because
where did
maybe,
this come from, Ian?
well, it only came out of the Seeing It in Action last week.
Yeah.
I think I emailed it to everyone. Do I know what to you? So it was just an idea which we haven't had a chance to discuss when we went to January. But
I'm a fan of grass, but,
No, I'm not, I'm, you know, I'm not convinced yet, no. It feels like it could be a very expensive solution to a problem we don't really have very much.
It's very cheap.
I'm
Yeah, no, I mean, it's recyclable plastic too.
If it's not very expensive, then I might change my view. But if it
Yeah,
can be lots of
exactly.
money,
No, I mean, I'm thinking of a single lane width of this stuff,
yeah,
which is £150 for a big square thing.
Yeah.
So it'll be a few £100s, but that's fine. I can look into it more than genuine in the States, but this will be fixed by the motor. So, it just seemed. I suppose the other side is how would we get a car out of the wreck if it was muddy?
I don't think we put them in if it was muddy.
yeah, I mean, that's what we've said for.
Yeah.
Okay.
We wouldn't offer it for use.
Most of the times we'll use it, it tends to be summer, not winter.
Yeah.
Well, with the exception of Christmas, obviously, but Christmas market.
Happy to talk about it further, but I'm not prepared at this stage to put any money into next year's budget beyond what's already there.
Chairman Strong Centre.
Journey Strong, what is the first one? Journey Strong?
Yes?
I think the Jones Strong Centre is a project in and of itself, and it's recently sent to the members of the Estates Committee a very interesting email with some ideas on. What I would say is that I would put more money aside without having it actually earmarked as knowing what we're going to spend it on, because I think the work, it's very likely that the work there that we'll need to do is going to end up being quite a lot of money, and it's more a matter of when the timing of when that's going to happen is. So I'd like to be building a fund, and if in the end we come to a more radical decision on what happens with the Jones Strong Centre, then it gets released. But I like to be building the fund.
Absolutely.
I think I'm not in the States, I haven't been in any detailed discussion with any of this, but I just do think we need to be extremely careful that we absolutely understand what improvement works would achieve and whether they would actually give us the result we want. Because there's a lot of stuff in the press at the moment about how poor the EPC certificate system is and how you can spend all the money to doing stuff and actually find it doesn't improve it at all.
I think we're very aware.
Yeah, so you need to be,
And talking to them last week, they were very aware that we could spend a lot of money on no significant improvement, when there are things that we could spend money on and make
That's the thing,
significant
Jerry,
improvement.
that if we're forced legally to go down that route, we've got the money.
Yeah.
But if we decide actually we're not under so much legal pressure to get that done, there's other things that would improve the building.
Yeah.
And would
So-
improve what they can deliver.
Yeah,
Because
So-
I mean, they're bussing with numbers.
Yeah.
They've got too many people and they need to be able to use the space better.
Yeah,
So-
I think whatever money you set aside, I think you would spend it.
Yeah.
And whatever we decided, like even if there was a radical decision,
Yeah.
we'd still have to spend money on it before there was any.
yeah.
So I think we could spend it. Yeah. So I think you probably
I put
That is
aside
one
a little
place
more
where-
than that, and,
you could put money.
All the toilet.
well, some of the toilet money, move it down
Yeah.
there effectively,
I'm
yeah.
just going to call it toilet money forever.
Yeah.
The
next 5 years.
Just to make it happen.
So come on, Liz, what number do we put there? How much toilet money do we put into Jones Strong Centre?
Have
It's
you-
ironic, given their
yeah.
toilet problems.
That's right.
Have you got it re-added with any changes we've made?
Yeah.
So how much have we got left if we stuck with the overall expenditure money? I can't remember how.
7.5. Did we put 7.5 in the toilets out of 41?
But didn't I put something else up as well?
You just threw it all away.
I know,
I don't think you did. I think you ran my parking into this, so there's money saved. When your car gets full, I'm going to.
6, I've doubled that, I've definitely doubled that,
Thomas, probably.
I've definitely doubled that.
Is everyone happy with building?
I'm going to propose we go a bit more.
I thought you would put more in than that.
Yeah, I think I'm going to propose 20. How's that?
I'm not going to go above the expenditure.
No, no,
that we
absolutely.
had
No,
overall,
absolutely.
though.
No, I'm absolutely.
It has to be within that.
We strive to try and get it down to 4% if we can, but I think if we have a nice healthy number there, that's great. Because I think we could do an awful lot down there. And if we're going to have to spend 20,000 on new light bulbs, then it's going to go anyhow.
15 then, 50.
15? Middle?
I feel like
50.
an auction.
Yeah.
50.
It's like being on eBay.
David Nixon's going to come in.
Our environment
Just
and
before we
welfare.
move on to whatever the next one is that Paul's going to come up with,
Mhm.
I'll just put in a little plea that whatever the percentage increase is on the precept, we apply a similar percentage increase to our grants budget, to give us a little bit more. Otherwise, it's just going to be frozen at this year's level.
Is grants gone up by 3% in the figures, or?
It doesn't appear to have done.
In terms of
With the rest of the toilet?
In terms of expenditure, grant as a percentage of total expenditure has decreased from sort of 3.5% in 2011 and slowly coming down to about 1.5%.
So,
But isn't it also true that we've generally not had enough
Yeah.
people
Mm.
asking for the money? So, you know,
maybe that's because we don't necessarily go out there and
Advertise it.
advertise
It's
the fact
true, Dave, it's absolutely true.
that we've got grant money available, partially because we worry that we'll run out of it in 6 months, because the budget is not that big.
What we can increase. Should we come back to that once we get to the bottom line and see
Yeah, yeah.
what the
Yeah.
number is?
Yeah.
And if there's any
As
toilet,
long as we flag it up.
toilet money left over.
Yeah.
So the next one-
I certainly love to advertise it more.
we can do that. I'm very happy to do that.
So on to
Now
the
a
next
number that
one.
we all choke on.
Environment,
Oh no,
no, well, is
I
that,
thought it was QVA.
Your wildflowers, first of all.
well, it's sort of gone under environment, water.
Can we go back to QVH? I've got that at 118. Line.
Yeah.
Okay, because, I mean, what we're looking at is 31,000 this year, 26,000 next year, 57,000 pounds over 2 years supporting QVH out, which I mean, Paul very kindly gives us the numbers, you know, going backwards. I mean, it's out of all proportion to anything that's been poured into the building in the past. But I mean, you know that I feel very strongly that we should be building pots of money to make sure that we have an ongoing repairs and maintenance. But it's eye-watering, those numbers to me. I mean, just extraordinary
Mm.
compared to what it ever used to be.
Is that due to COVID, loss of income, or is it?
It was down before.
So I mean, those are the figures that were there for the last 10 years or so, how much the income was. It's reduced from 20,000, 19, 18, 16. And since 2016, the highest figure has been 12,000. But we spend about £12,000 every year through caretaking.
Yeah.
And that doesn't include any repairs and maintenance. And that doesn't include the £23,000 loan we have every year.
Mm.
And it's simply, we don't bring in enough money
To cover it.
and we need to do something about bringing in more money. Because if you doubled your income, your expenditure at half.
Mm. Yeah, the maths is simple enough,
Yeah.
sort of thing, but
Any money that you don't get in is costing out the town
Yeah.
council.
I think the problem with it though, it's got its limitations. One of them is parking,
yes.
and it puts so many people off.
And steps, which are,
Mm.
yes, there are not many of them, but they're an issue if you don't want steps.
You can go around the side.
No, I know, but I know people that don't go there because of the steps.
They see the steps, they don't
Yeah.
see that side entrance, do they? It wasn't until I took Erica down there the first time, and you could do that, you know, not what she knew, but.
Yeah.
I mean, I know we've got QVH next week, and I just think when we meet as the trustees, just some recognition.
But you have agreed-
Without putting any serious repairs and maintenance
Yeah.
in.
You have agreed your QBH budget, so you have agreed that this is what you're asking town council for.
I accept that, but I don't know, when I looked at it this time,
We
when
need
I
to
added
look
up
at a solution
57,000.
long term,
Yeah,
and there might be.
I think it,
pushes me that way.
I totally understand what you're saying, but I don't think we've got any choice in
No,
the
no,
short term.
Yeah.
And that is the only option in the short term, but it doesn't mean,
But if
this
you find,
resolution is what we should
I
be
mean,
doing.
that's a significant percentage of the preset,
Yeah.
isn't it?
Yeah.
but it also means that every household around you is paying a significant amount of money towards
Exactly.
keeping Food Victoria Hall
Yeah.
to to use it. So we need to
Well,
find,
use it, yeah,
use it more and use it better.
yeah,
So let's find a solution to that.
yeah.
But it's an absolutely valid point, and I think it should be one of our targets next year is to keep an eye on it and solve it. Because otherwise that's going to give you the number year on year on year, and that'll be bad.
Mm.
Anything else coming down to environment, community? We've got £1,000 for wildflowers, trees, etc., etc.
This is all, so,
Which might come under.
You happy with that?
yeah.
Any more than that would be
Next
lovely
bit
in
of
church.
After that, I was.
You've done all the staffing, haven't you?
I've seen the staff increases
Continue
as
more.
they are.
That was just the Rugby Club 1, professional fees.
Yeah.
And Rugby Club resolution, £5,000 plus potentially a transport study.
Yeah.
Are you happy with keeping all those as they are?
Didn't we agree that transport study was going to be in this? Yeah.
That's the ambition, but it depends on the timing, doesn't it?
Oh, okay.
And we're still waiting, so it's probably going to be next year, but that'll be 15,000 saved this year and 15,000 spent next year.
One for me, I was going to move the budgeting for rentals because there was a decision made that everyone wanted the rentals separated out for everything we do, which doesn't make sense now because the water cooler we no longer have, the franking machine we're hopefully going to get rid of in April, and there's only going to be one thing, which is the Olivetti copier, and it makes sense to put that under photocopying.
So you're killing 7123.
Yeah, it's gone forever.
What a little 7.
Yeah.
Good segue.
Computer expenses, this was between Ian and Emma.
I haven't received any of that.
I was just going to say, it looks like ours each.
That's an amazing blur. That's a Christmas sort of.
This has been recorded.
No, I'm joking.
Sorry.
That's 365, etc.
Yeah.
Coming online next year, isn't it? Which I think will pay big dividends, hopefully.
So that's staying at 10, yeah?
How realistic is that number then? Based on anything?
Yes and no. So presumably costs at the moment are what they are. I suppose the idea is that the more you're at 365, the more there's going to be potentially some hardware expenses and some licensing expenses as well. Is that where those are coming in, licensing expenses?
Well, a lot of it is obviously Blue Moon,
Yeah.
which covers everyone's emails and supporting us in every way in everything they do. You have an issue on IT, you phone Blue Moon, and they resolve it. It doesn't matter what it is.
And then also, I mean, some of it might depend on what happens with servers and going on the cloud and all that sort of stuff, but that's, we've got that next week's agenda. To some extent.
Well, I've,
We got that with the phones.
no, I've just got the phone thing on it.
Do you think we need to have a little think though about the 365 thing? Because I know what you're saying, I can appreciate there may be some budgets, but we're going from a very small budget to an ongoing £10,000 a year, aren't we? Which is quite a big change.
Mhm.
It's not, £10,000 isn't supposed to, it's a 1 year thing, but it's you're going to a whole new infrastructure that's going to continue to cost you that in the future. I wonder if it's really worth that much.
Did I come up with the 10,000?
Yes,
Did I? Where did I come up with it?
we don't like to interrupt your well there.
Oh, that's fine. I don't remember coming up. I think the costs of moving to 365 should probably be lower than that. But,
Well, we've got Office 365 at the moment.
Exactly, yeah. So the license cost should be lower.
But, yeah, but you don't most of councillors. So at the moment, you basically rely on councillors paying their own IT
Yeah,
costs.
yeah, but I don't think that was to add any further costs for councillors. because that was still
No,
run on.
currently, no Office suite I've got run on my computer, and it's licensed to me, it's my license.
Yeah,
So it's fine, it's fine if you've got
and
that.
we just cover your email
Yeah,
account.
come to me, my account, yeah. But if you go to a full 365 license, that's a pretty significant ongoing cost. on an
Yeah,
annual
huge
basis.
costs. I don't think that we're not looking to do that, because I think it would be very expensive.
No, I don't recall coming up with that number,
Okay.
so
I think, I mean, you know, if we have to buy,
I think
I
having it
mean,
as
knowing
one
if you
off
have to buy
next year.
laptops, you're spending what, 1,500, or if you're going to buy a new desktop.
So is that,
But I mean, we've recently upgraded everything in the last couple of years. The oldest one now is mine,
okay.
which is 5 years
So is
old.
that part of that budget looking to replace
Mm,
hardware as well?
yeah.
And do we do that through Blue Moon?
We have done, yeah, in the past, yeah. They because what they do is they just set it all up for you. So the laptop arrives ready to go.
Yeah. So I mean, if I came up with that number, I came up with it from who knows where. So if we want to make that a more realistic projection, that's fine by me. But
It wasn't on no, absolutely no basis of knowing whether 10,000 is right
No.
next year or not. What I was a bit worried about is it's gone from a relatively small number to 10,000 every year on that sheet. It's 10,000 in 23, 4 and 4, 5 as well.
yeah, well, as I said, that was me. I apologise. I don't remember coming up with that. It's not on my original sheet, so I don't know.
7.5, 8,
8 seems
take a little bit.
reasonable with a laptop replacement. That's going to take up
Okay,
a grand or more.
So what's this column, row number? I've lost it.
202.
202, it's normal code 7124.
202, there we go.
It's there.
So what if you reduce?
Those figures for the past 7 years.
Yeah.
So you had a big IT upgrade in 2015, IT server in 2016, and then everything moved on to being emails for councillors rather than personal, and a number of other things that we pay for through Blue Moon on a monthly basis. We upgraded everything significantly a couple of years ago. They now answer nearly all of our issues.
So actually 8,000 looks quite generous.
But
Oh, we've got 4 committed for Blue Moon, or that, 5.5 committed. So right, that number at the bottom, 5,300, that's
yeah.
committed. Before you do anything else. Yeah. 8 sounds right then. 8 sounds right.
as Blue Moon said, if you've got a computer more than sort of 2.5 years old, if it goes wrong, it's probably best to just change it. It's not worth repairing.
You said 3 years,
You know, throwaway society. So we're getting close to the end. I think repairs and maintenance on Fletton.
This is the 20,000, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Painting and decorating.
With, yeah. Estates would recommend that stays in, certainly. I can speak for them. Building fund,
Building fund, yeah. Queen's Jubilee, I think 10 seems a good number. Whatever we do is going to be deliverable and manageable.
I think probably the final one was the Hub Phoenix project, and that's 13 grand's worth of budget with 5 grand worth of income, which is to whatever people want to say or do.
Chapel solution. And I think that's what we're backing that from here on, so and then see where it goes. And again, I saw a very good community cafe on Sunday. I was very impressed by
very
it,
exciting.
which works really well. And they've started it tentatively, and they're now going to a 5-year cycle with Melton Mowbray Council. And we're doing great things. Really nice coffee.
So in terms of how much you potentially take from reserves at a 5%, it'd be 37,000 down from as part of 60,000.
Which is a
David, you've got 30,000 to add to your community grants.
No, I'm not even going to answer to that one. Strangely.
29.5. But then also, that's effectively 10% of reserves, isn't it, roughly, as a number. plus we've got hopefully an underspend this year, so
Yes.
in theory, we're actually up on the deal, the reserves are still looking happy, so. Could we go
Give us
4%,
a
or is
number,
that too
David,
bold?
for your community grants. Tell us what you.
But if we really push the grants,
I don't think 5% is an unreasonable number to be able to justify to people. I mean, people know that prices have gone up.
there's
a lot of
there's
additional
big
costs.
changes coming as well.
People will see.
People will see.
I think particularly as we didn't even put it up last year either. So you've had over 2 years, you've just put it at 5%.
I mean, that's not indicating inflation, is it, over the last couple of years?
And hopefully we're delivering more. So.
And there'll be some change in that because obviously we haven't got the Band D figure,
No.
and that'll have an impact on it. I'm assuming it'll go down. Should go down.
It should go down, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, no, you mean numbers of people?
Well,
The number of
it
households
should
increase.
make the percentage
Yeah,
go
yeah,
down,
no,
but I can't guarantee it because you never know. What numbers?
Given that, they've told us what last year's, haven't they?
Yeah, we only had last year's, which
Yeah.
was ridiculous.
So that's outside of control, isn't
It
it?
is,
Yeah.
So, having never done this before, what do we just say 5% thank you very much bang, or is there a more complex way?
Well, what you've done is you've approved your budget,
Yeah.
so that is the budget that you're going to recommend to put through to full council. You've approved your precept. Now I've got a figure. What is it? Have I got 559473?
No, that's the
I might have
expenditure.
missed.
The precept is 521.
737. Yeah, so you've
But that's prior to David.
what the grant?
So what do you want the grant budget to be then?
Well, no, that won't change, will it, in future?
No, because we'll just take that
Any
from
extra
reserves,
money
won't
goes
change.
to grants
Yeah.
and from
The
reserves.
5% is the 5%.
So we just effectively advertise the grants and see what comes, knowing that we like grants.
Oh no, I think we should budget a number, but it doesn't make any difference to that 521,
So what budget?
because that's 5%.
Yeah,
What line is grants on? Where is that?
Okay, 5302.
so you've got,
If you drop to 1.5%, did you say, as a percentage of overall
Rolls
expenditure?
out through.
Yeah, yeah,
I was
the
saying
problem with that is we don't have the precept, is that's the reason why it's hard, is because the precept's quite so big.
It's quite a nice little,
So we've got
little thing though, so it's 2%.
grant arts,
Mhm.
grant community support. Do we have a definition of what they are? Apart from the
One's due, yes, isn't it?
one's arts and one's.
yeah, one's arts, one's like
So one's things like
music
GNS,
festival.
one's what have you,
So
Yeah.
more singing, dancing.
community might be.
So would you like both pumped up a little bit?
Yeah.
Or- So one's on 3 and one's on 12,360. 3.5 and 13, or can we go bigger than that? Because we could argue we want more use of our halls. We want to encourage more use post-COVID or during COVID or whatever's going to be the next year or two. And we'd like to encourage and fire start community groups. So you want 5 and 15?
Yeah.
Do you like it?
5 and 15? That's a positive statement, isn't it? Provided they use our advertising.
I was just going to say, then that can include the advertising budget for them.
When you put on the grant form, you must use this logo, as big as you can. If you're successful. Half the logo, then you get half. That's improvement.
So
This is a
can
good
I
thing.
change that, put another 35 pence in somewhere?
I've got 35p somewhere.
That's good. I'm happy.
I'll propose that budget.
I'll second it.
Lovely. 5% seems reasonable and fair, and there's lots of good things in there. And we need to keep ourselves honest to
Yeah.
spending that money in other places. And doing
and
those
so
things.
what's the precept now?
So
Still
521,
the same.
738.
I'll propose that.
Marvellous. So I suppose if Paul Paul and Emma are happy, we move on to any other business. Is there any reason why we shouldn't?
No?
Lovely. Liz, any other business?
No, thank you.
Jerry, any other business? David, any other business? Lee, no other business? Fantastic. 10 to 9. Thank you very much for